We're live, and we're live.
Because I only do video on the camera, and then I do audio through here.
This is his radio voice, dude. So he goes.
I got a good one. So, Sunny. No, but
AMSR.
ASMR.
RMAS.
It stands for.
I don't
audio, know. I'll tell you.
Go.
It's ASMR.
Okay.
And it stands for audio sphincter manipulation repulsion.
I love it. No, but listen, I don't know how I stumbled on it, but I did. And I like it, and she just whispers, and the other day she just did like trivia, like facts. But even when I saw her eat, it wasn't like, she was just, I don't know. It's a very soothing thing, and I knock off to it.
I feel like it's, a lot of people make fun of it.
Knock off to it.
I fall asleep to it.
That's one thing to say, but I feel like there's something to it, as weird as it is, and a lot of people make fun of it. I feel like sometimes I listen to ASMR and I'm like,
It's sensory. It's got to be sensory. It's either tactile, auditory, visual, and we're all unique. Like I think about my daughter's story and her relationship, and she's like, she wants to immerse herself in sensation. So if there's like water or puddles or sand, like to literally like feel it all everywhere. And then there's other people who it's like you can't even be touched because it's too much. Like Allison, when we're in the pool, she'll do the thing where it wrinkles up, and if you try and touch Allison with that, she'll whoop your ass, dude.
She'll wig.
She'll be like, God, stop.
I don't think I have anything that bothers me like that. I'm not ashamed of the listening to that now, but it's not. I'm telling everybody. I told everybody in team meetings, like, dude,
preach the gospel,
Yep.
Yeah.
You're curious about it.
When I was younger, I had some sort of sensory disability. I'm not sure what it was, but I had to wear, they did like a bunch of weird therapies for it. Like they would brush my skin, and they would like put on headphones, like at the beach. I don't know what was going on with me, but for some reason, like part of it was that I could withstand high heat. So I would take like scalding hot baths.
Really?
And my parents were like, are you okay? Like your skin's red. And I'm like, oh, this is fine. Don't worry about it.
Interesting.
Make it harder.
What do you mean brush your skin?
It was like
you get a brush, like so, and it not associated. And I don't believe you to be on the spectrum, but like with a lot of spectrum kids, they'll do that, or sensory of anything. And we had a brush for story at one point, and they'll actually like
like hard.
Yeah. It hurts sometimes.
That does something that like physiologically calms the whole nervous system.
It was really strange. They thought I had a lot of different issues when I was young. So
you got overly pathologized, as most of us do in Western society.
It was rough, that's for sure. Yeah.
I gotta sneeze.
Sonny, you've always been the archetype of the romantic and the artist. Bless you.
I'm sorry. I like to be dramatic with my sneezes.
I've never pathologized you, and partly that's because of how I view and conceptualize mental health and therapeutic work and the DSM and Western psychology, and you and I have talked. I see you as a unique human soul, a creative artist. I do think you are very sensitive, as am I, in being an empath and feeling things, but you're also highly intellectual. And I just think it's the archetype in a Jungian archetypal way of the artist, the creator. What did I read, man?
Me very big smart.
It's interesting because I remember you. I think it was here, and I was like, "Dude, I respect," because you showed him around the space, and I was like,
and I
was like, "Yo, so you want to cruise?" You're like, "No, I'm just gonna go in here." I was like, all right, later.
Well,
it was interesting because I like that. I mean, I think it's cool to be protective of your energy and stuff like that. You're like, like a lot of people would put themselves in a situation that they didn't want to be in and have a weird resentment. But I like people who are like, no, this is not. I'm not going to do this because I'm not into it.
Yeah, I'm a very insular person.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me to like just talk with people. I'm pretty neurotic, and I have like problems with like meta insecurities. Like my insecurities have insecurities while I'm talking with people. It gets way too complicated in my head. So,
but you did. I remember that day was funny because you came up and you and I had a session, and I think I told Zach beforehand, like, dude, my past client's coming up. I haven't seen him in a little bit. He's super cool, man. His name's Sonny. He's, I think at that point I described you as like being in the punk scene, but you and I had talked more and more. Anyways, I was like, man, he's a badass musician, artist. If you could cruise with him for a little bit, I'm running late. I think he's going to be totally cool and want to cruise. And then like Zach towards you and you were like, nope, I'm okay. And Zach was like, dude, I don't think that dude likes me, man.
No.
But it's good to hear you voice that now because you did that. And I was like, dude, I mean, it's just, that was on my own insecurity. Because I'm like, why does he want to hang out?
It's less that I hold people in contempt more than I hold people in fear. It's
okay.
I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
Dude, and let me start it with this. I really, really appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Because I know that takes effort and energy, and you haven't left your apartment in a little while. You've been out, but like not only with COVID and quarantine, but then you've also been working on a huge musical project.
And agoraphobia has really been kicking my ass. So
okay.
Yeah. The last time I got out was when my dog died, or my brother was like, hey, Sophie's going to go in for surgery. She might die. And there was like some drama surrounding that. And then having to go out, it was pretty bad, pretty rough. But I had a plan with the record. I was like, I need to get this done, have that whole cycle for my mental health, like get that out. That's why I partially release music, is just to, it feels like breathing out. It's just like getting it over with, getting it out there. And then I was like, I want to get on the podcast, and then I want to seek treatment options, and then move. I have a plan for myself.
Dude. I love that, man. I like that you're like, I'm gonna have agoraphobia, but you're not just like sitting there. You're channeling that energy somehow and into your music, what I think is like a beautiful thing, man.
Thank you.
It's really cool. And I know you guys have a lot of history, but like just sitting with me is cool, man. And I want you to speak on your music if you want to.
Sure.
Because before we hit record, you were talking about, damn it, what did you call it?
Starvation and sonically defining emotions and stuff.
Yeah, you called it the starvation pieces.
Starvation works.
Starvation works, and I think that's very interesting. Dude.
I think a big goal of my music is I don't use my voice a lot, and I don't like write lyrics. I do long form ambient composition, sound collages, and weird experimental shit.
Just hold on, stop. I love your articulation.
Thank you.
Long form ambient compositions and sound collages or soundscapes.
It's cool, man.
Rarely do words and verbiage create mental pictures for me, but those types of that's a good description. It's beautiful.
I appreciate
Soundscapes, sound collages. It's awesome.
It's kind of the montage of Heck, Kurt Cobain.
Yes.
What's montage of Heck?
That was awesome. It was like animated. A lot of it was animated, and it was just about Kurt Cobain and his like early childhood life,
right? Yeah,
and stuff like that. That's it. That's awesome.
It was named after a sound collage piece that he did, which was like chopping up a bunch of different recordings and just having them flow into each other. And that's like an early example of sound collage. But with the works that I do in sound collage, it's more like, it's kind of like creating an ambient soundscape, but instead with like a collection of sounds. Like that's the goal with it.
Cool.
So one of the tracks, I think it's the third on the latest record, is called Smother in My Skin. And for me, that title was like telling someone to suffer with me, to be in my skin and feel around,
Yeah.
So I tried to use sounds from my life and from what I've been listening to lately. So there's this band called the Music Tapes. They pop up on there briefly. There's some backward samples, but it's less of like the montage of Heck is like one sample, then another sample, then another sample, and it forms sentences sometimes. Than it is just like you have the bass line, you have the bottom part of the sound spectrum, and then you have building up from there. So
what's the name of the album?
To Shower in Monochrome Light.
Dude.
Dude, I want to hear it, now, man.
Listen, this dude.
It's not good. I'm telling you.
I don't believe you.
It's horrible. Thank you.
We listened to it. It's horrible. We're like, oh God, it's horrible.
Oh God, he was right.
Dude, who's the band that you turned me on to? A couple different people did, but I always got stuck just in the I was like, fuck the band, dude. Just this one sentence.
Silver Mount Zion.
Yes. The sentence is,
fuck off, get free. We pour light on everything.
Oh, we use that.
That's what I mean, dude. And he knew immediately who they were.
Dude,
fuck
I lit
off,
up.
get free. We pour light on everything.
Was that our Beyonce dancing video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We quoted
What's
to
up?
that.
What's up?
I take a huge inspiration from Ephraim Minnock, who's the songwriter behind Silver Mount Zion, and his most known project, Godspeed You Black Emperor. And his names are just like, he was interviewed about it, and he was like, I don't like minimalist names. I think that a name can be as long as it needs to explain how it feels.
Beautiful.
And one of my favorite song names from him, which I think is hilarious, I don't think he meant it that way, but it's called Blown Out Joy from Heaven's Mercied Hole.
Dude, they're so descriptive, man. They paint a picture, and I love that.
It reminds me of up in the art room, Samania Road. I bet you shower naked, you slut. That could be one. I just reminded me of that. Anyway.
That.
It's really funny.
I love that one, man.
My favorite part about that record, though, is that the Fuck Off, Get Free. I mean, that record, for a lot of people, Ephraim Minnock came into his own in his voice. And it actually, the name is a reference to his first album, which is called He Left Us Alone, but Sometimes Shafts of Light Grace the Corner of Our Rooms.
Damn.
So he was like, God has kind of left us, but we can have a little bit of light as a treat. And then he's just like, removal of God, we're going to create our own path. I think that's what he was going for, and I really vibe with that. So,
removal of God, we create our own path. I love it, dude. It's like, I think a lot of us tend to put a container on like our art because we think there's like some fucking rules. Mm-hmm. And we've had this conversation with somebody else. And I'm like, dude, the cool thing about creating your own art or whatever it may be, there's no fucking rules. You make up whatever you want to make up, man. Mm-hmm. And I think that's cool. But I think a lot of us tend to put a container or a label or like a lid on it. Mm-hmm. Just because this is what we think it has to be to conform to a certain way or fit into this category. It's like, man, just create to create, man, whatever that looks like to you. I think it's cool.
I think that fits into my like ethos as an artist a lot. When I was working on this record and the other ones, it was like, because of what had happened in my friend group and the accusations and all that, it was like, this record's going to be received negatively. People aren't going to like it, but I'm doing it for myself, or I'm trying to do it for myself. But there was always those like parts of me that are like, oh, I want this to reach an audience. I want this to be enjoyed by a mass amount of people. But at the end of the day, I was like, I want you to hate this record. I don't want you to listen to this record. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. I think it's pretty bad. I kind of, but I did it for me. And
I made
else.
this for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I made this for me.
So
that's awesome.
I also have all my music up for free, and my Spotify isn't linked to a bank account. So even streaming revenue, I don't get money off of it. And it's not that I think that that's how all artists should do it. That's just how I choose to.
Rock and roll.
I don't want to profit off of it. It's like, this is me shouting into the void. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's not for you.
We're going to go ahead and have you link it to our bank account. We're
I like
go
that,
ahead
man.
And market you. We really think you could be a great look with the kids, Sonny.
You'll make 1 penny per year.
I like it, man. For making it for the sake of making it, because it resonated with you and that's what you wanted to do. I'm not against charging for things, but like, I wrote a book, but I was back and forth with charging for it, and I didn't. I was like, I don't want to. I just want to fucking give it away. I think that's fucking awesome, dude, when I hear artists do that.
I think...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good, you're good.
I think it would have been... it would have felt wrong for me to try to charge for it.
Because it's like... That, man.
When I've had like... I'm not famous by any means, and barely anybody knows my art, but one person once was like, oh yeah, I saw this that you posted on Reddit once. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And I was like, oh... Thanks. For me, when somebody hears my art, it's like this is gonna be a weird like metaphor, but it's like someone like walking in on you naked.
Yeah.
So like you're most vulnerable, and you have to like try not to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like it's very uncomfortable for me.
Dude, I was up in Zach's office, and he, if you don't mind me sharing,
I have no clue what you're gonna say.
Then I'm gonna go ahead and share.
Oh boy.
Did you walk in on him naked?
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah, I walked it on the naked. Well, that happens every day. But what was more vulnerable for him is he's writing poetry, and he was like, I don't do this, and this is odd, and read it to me. And then I said, I don't know why you feel weird about it. Like, it's fucking awesome, man. And he was like, because I feel really, really vulnerable and really exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's that piece of like, I'm sharing something that's deeply internal, and other people are going to perceive it. And then we live in such a culture of critics, man, where I'm going to tell you right now, whatever the fuck you put out into the world, 100,000 people are going to say it changed their lives and it made them want to live. 100,000 people are going to say it was garbage, the worst thing they've ever fucking heard. And 100,000 people are going to go, what? I didn't even hear it.
Who's that?
What?
That's true.
No matter what.
We built this like image in our head about it and how it's going to be perceived, and it's like really fucks with us.
There's are you familiar with the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre?
Yes.
Just bought his book recently.
Yeah,
Nausea.
I've been trying to read Being and Nothingness.
Yeah.
And I'm being very slow with it because there's a lot of like just in the first like chapter, which I haven't even made it through, he's just talking about the layers of being and making these references to all sorts of philosophers, and I'm like, I don't know who Kant is. What's going on?
Yeah.
But I think he's most
It's actually
famous.
pronounced Kant. No, I'm just
Don't even get me started.
I hate motherfuckers like that, though.
No,
Like,
actually.
especially when you start to venture into something, and I love your humbleness. You're like, I'm dipping my toe in Jean-Paul Sartre.
It's heavy, dude.
Philosophies. It is. Primary sources, crazy.
I barely made it through the intro of the book I'm reading.
When I first tried to read it, I was online and I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
What do you mean the monism of being, and what's a noumenon?
Yeah.
I was really confused. And I think he's most famous for his book No Exit, though, and the quote, hell is other people. And
I didn't even know that was Sartre. Cool.
The really good part
true.
about
Sartre.
Just kidding, sorry.
no, sorry, I'm in my head a little bit.
No, that's awesome.
You were
like
talking about perceptions and people having perceptions of you. I think that a lot of people take the quote, hell is other people, and they use it to justify needless misanthropy. And they're like, oh, I hate other people. I'm going to sit in a corner and jerk off my personality.
Dude, that's gonna name it. That's gonna be the name of this podcast. Jerk off your personality.
That's,
But it's perception, it's lenses, and I love Jean-Paul Sartre. I like Martin Heidegger. I like On Being and Time, I think is one that he wrote. And it is, man, they go into this deep dive where they are peeling all the layers. So there's the layer of like what it means to be human, what it means to be encapsulated in skin, what it means to have sensory perception, what it means to feel other bodies and other people's energy, ego, persona, identity, and they just start to peel and describe experiences that can be very disconcerting and feel like the rug is pulled out from underneath you because all these things that you thought are these stable entities then start to become kind of like free form. Like, what is reality? What is perception? What is truth? Is it moving and ebbing and flowing? And that's heavy stuff to play with, man.
What is philosophy?
Yeah.
That's a big thing about the Sartesian perspective is the deconstruction of like thought and ideas and even objects. Like we think of like this is a table, and this isn't especially deep or anything, but using the Sartesian perspective, you would be like, this is a tree that has been cut up that we put pieces of plastics on to consume liquids.
Yes.
You'd break it down to its most absurd form and be like,
Yep.
It's kind of strange that we do this.
And that was Albert Camus, called it the absurd.
Yeah,
and living and looking at something and having that moment of experience of like, oh my God, everything around us is absurd.
He mentions the table. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the table and eating.
Description. And like, there's exactly what you said. And God, how did he say it? He's like, it's a tree made into this, and we shove our legs underneath it, and then we sit at it at a certain time in space, and then we shove like dead pieces of meat into our mouth. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, that's dinner.
Yeah.
That's what we call dinner.
If you overthink everything, things can seem very strange.
Yes.
It's like, this we're eating this being that we have perceived as beneath ourselves.
Yeah.
As a smaller IQ. So we
God.
deem it necessary to eat. And you could go on and
just layers, man. Sonny, I was going to say, I really, really like earlier, because I have a tendency to do this because I'm such humanistic and person-centered. But when you brought up the term agoraphobia, it, I have a tendency to go, hey, you're not agoraphobic, you're just an artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, just stay home for a while, man.
That's fair.
I'm curious to know how you conceptualize your journey with mental health, how you even view mental health treatment. I know before you and I met, you had done some treatment, and then we connected, and man, you came into my office, you had green hair, I
don't have any hair now. I shaved it off. Well, it's growing back. But
welcome to the club.
But dude, and then you played some tracks on guitar for me, and you played Andrew Jackson Jihad. You did a cover of one of theirs, right? Did I get that right?
It was either that or Pat the Bunny.
Yeah, and it was just, you and I started to have these lengthy conversations about philosophy, about subculture, about punk subculture, about gender identity, about sexuality, about social systems, culture. It was beautiful, man. And I was honored to be in those spaces with you and hold that space. But I'm just, whatever you want to share that you feel comfortable with about your journey of identity and mental health, and where you've been, where you're at, where you're moving, I think would be awesome.
I think before getting into that, you make me sound like I'm larger than life or something.
Dude, it was pretty fucking impressive.
I think before we get into that, I'd like to say that I consider myself a very small person, and that my journey is just one of many, and I've had it worse and better than some. So I don't consider myself to be any more special than anybody else because of pain I've gone through or, other things. And my personality right now is kind of like pre-alpha. Like, I'm still working on things, trying to finalize things, because I've realized that I've dipped into narcissism too much. So I'm trying to, like, if I criticize myself, I just don't want you to mistake it as self-deprecation as much as it is me stating a flaw that I think I have.
Damn, dude. Well,
sorry.
Jesus. No, it was great.
But I don't think there's been a time that I've never been in any sort of therapy. When I was 4, I think 3 or 4, they started medicating me for, I'm not sure, I don't remember everything, but hypermania. They thought I was bipolar a couple of times. The sensory issue where they would brush my skin and shit. It was, I was put on a bunch of medications, and I'm not even sure all of what I went through. But essentially, they thought it was just a very extreme form of ADHD. And as a result, I was thrown from a bunch of different therapists, and I was kind of viewed as this sort of nuisance child, and it was very difficult. But my parents always saw that while I was like way too impulsive and quick to act, there was like a part of me that, like, I was on the sandbox once, and I saw a kid knock over another kid's sandcastle, and I immediately got in his face and was like, let's fucking go. And apparently this kid was taller than me, and he looked down at me and was like, what are you gonna do? And I got on my tippy toes and like stood him in the eye, and I'm like, oh God, childhood me was a badass.
Yeah.
Damn, I fell so far from grace.
Or maybe just protective and the role of like wanting to step in when you felt like others were injustized. Injustitized. Yep, that's
I don't know.
Injustitized.
We're gonna cut that.
I'm
gonna edit that. Yeah, I'm gonna edit that out.
But and so then, were any of those experiences helpful at all, or did it just feel like it was this therapeutic wish-wash of like different psychologists, or did anybody ever connect with you on a level when you were young where you were like, man, that was helpful?
I don't remember all that happened back then, and I'm not going to say I had the roughest childhood, but I do think that I've blanked a lot of it out as a way to cope with things that were happening. There weren't a lot of times where I felt like someone had reached out to me and treated... I feel like I was treated as an issue and less of a person for a long period of time. And about 3 years ago, I was, when I was like 15 or 16, I was admitted into first a mental institute called Peachford that was local. And that was just like, I did not enjoy that experience. The patients were nice, and a lot of us had gone through similar shit, so they were like, hey, we get that you're depressed. Like, we were in the wing for like, we were in Unit 1, and most of us were like suicidal or something. So it's like, hey man, you're not exactly special. We've been there. And that was the first time I felt like, hey, I'm not the only fuck up out there. There's other people that have issues, not have mistakes. And then I was inducted into a therapeutic boarding school for 18 months called Cherokee Creek Boys School. And that was the first time I felt like, gradually began to feel like I had some sort of home or family. And the first therapist that I saw there, who was actually a social worker, Jacob Hafkin, was the first one who like looked at me, and I was this like overweight emo kid with like hair covering his eye, and I was like, you don't understand me. This is my culture. You don't know. And he looked at me with like sadness and disappointment, but he didn't look at me like I was an issue. And he talked to me, and he like struck right through me and was like, hey, let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. You're a person. And that was a really valuable experience for me, I feel.
Rock and roll. And they had a cool, I remember I've looked at Cherokee Creek, and I've talked to somebody out there, but they had a pretty unique, was it based on Native American or Indian culture and kind of like the spirit wheel?
The medicine wheel.
Medicine wheel.
I'm not sure the exact culture it came from.
Okay.
But the path or the medicine wheel, it's like 4 different segments, and each segment comes with a packet. And when you've completed the path and completed your therapy, then you can graduate and leave.
That's their whole they base it all on like that.
It's a pilgrimage to go do that.
Is that here?
No, where's Cherokee Creek?
It's like right on the border. I forget the name of the river. The Tugaloo. Near Toccoa, Georgia, Westminster, South Carolina.
Okay. Cool.
It's a really, I suggest it for any parents with troublesome kids.
And this is what age group was it?
I think it fluctuates. At first it was like, oh, you can't be older than 17 and be here. But then my friend Hunter turned 17 while he was there. Okay. And they didn't like kick him out or anything. So I think that the youngest they'll allow is like 10.
Okay. Cool. And then you came back. From there, from 18 months there.
And I came back for 2 weeks and then went to a boarding school that I don't want to name I don't want to get into legal trouble. But it was not a good experience. It was not a therapeutic boarding school, and I was a very sheltered kid and went in there like, oh, everybody's going to be real nice to me, they're going to welcome me. There's going to be a parade. And I also thought very highly of myself. And it was kind of like a smack in the face because a lot of really kind of fucked up shit happened there. So. And
you did that for how long?
6 months. And then I stayed like the latter half of a school year there. And then I was like, I can't go back.
And what age were you when you were in there?
16, and I turned 17 while I was there.
Yeah, almost 2 years
in
that Cherokee program, and then got you. Yeah,
it was the second boarding school was my choice, but it was not a choice that I approve of now.
Yeah,
where was music in all of it, man? Like, were you able to work on art and music during that time period, or were you even doing it?
With Cherokee Creek, there wasn't like a whole lot to do. And for me, I just practiced guitar the entire time. I had to get put on guitar restriction because I wasn't working on my path work.
Did they really?
No way.
I think twice or 3 times.
Awesome, though. What a cool thing to have.
Fuck your creativity.
Yeah. Well, I've been put on guitar restriction.
Yeah, I'm cool. Yeah. I'm a real punk. They can't keep us down. I'll start singing. But it was... I only knew like 2 chords in one song when I was there. And I went through a lot of like guitar work there, and a lot of the kids hated me because I would play like this one riff from like some car seat headrest song that was like 3 notes, and they'd be like, play something else. God damn it. And I'd be like, no. A lot of hostility.
And dude, I remember you and I started to talk about subculture and the punk scene, and you've more than any other human being, you've given me a lot of knowledge and insight into that culture. And it was pretty cool. I remember I shared with you a book by Hans Scott Meyer called
I have to give it back to you.
No worries. No, it's yours. Keep it.
Really?
Yeah, I want to get another one of his, man. He's on my dissertation committee, and I want to buy his book.
I appreciate it.
So that's yours. Yeah. But it was really cool, the research he did, where it was letting people talk about their journey and their lived experience. And like, I know you went through and had a lot of identity tied to punk culture at some point. Like it was a big part of like your ethos and your morals and how you saw the world and the different punk subcultures. Can you break it down a little bit for us novices, man?
I would like to, though I don't consider myself punk anymore. And I would say that my experience with punk is heavily biased. I was treating the culture in a way that I shouldn't. Like I would go to a lot of hardcore shows, and there's like a bunch of different types of shows and subcultures. And while hardcore generally has a more like, I'm gonna piss somebody off, jock like focus ethos, and there's a lot of
masculinity.
Yeah, sometimes. So I think that they come from a good place. Especially our local scene has a lot of like progressive ideals that I agree with, and you know, there's a hostility towards outsiders in a lot of subcultures. If you went to like a hardcore show, punked up, decked out, you know, with spikes and dyed hair, you would kind of be side-eyed. Not always, but you know, it was like, you know, the pits were different. They did what's called two-stepping, and it's like a form of skanking. It's kind of like running in place very violently.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And
Violent jogging in place.
I was more into push pits, and our first hardcore show, like one of our friends fell and they wouldn't help him up, and it was kind of weird. Though I think that when I would go to shows, I was like so tense, and I would be like, no, I'm this cool punk dude, you know, they're the problem. And I would never talk to anybody, and then afterwards I'd complain about hardcore shows when I should have probably, you know, confronted my awkwardness and anxiety and then approach situations differently, as opposed to just sitting in a corner and jerking off my personality. So, yeah.
Dude, God, man, it's so fascinating to me, and I don't want to sound like the guy who's like, "Oh, look at the fascinating punk."
See, this punk has this nice plumage on his head.
But like, man, I love the idea of historical lineages and creations of subcultures. And I remember that movie, This Is England, and it talked about the punk scene there and what it represented. Because it's just there's a lot of
specifically the skinheads, right?
Yes, but there's so much misconception about that scene. And then even when you go to like skanking and early ska and how it blended with punk, it not only is it music history, but it's cultural and socio-cultural history. And at some point there's no separation. If we look at all musical history and we trace different eras and scenes and musical genres, it can take us right to the heart of the culture and where it was being created and what was going on in the cultural climate. And that's what's fucking badass. Take me to Hendrix, I'll show you what was going on in the cultural climate. Take me to this, take me to the Beatles, and we can see what was going on. It's almost like music is a reflection of what's occurring in society through that artist lens and how they kind of see it. And it's badass, man.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I loved the whole like punk history thing, and like skanking especially. Like, dude, let me tell you about the history of skanking.
You know what skanking is, right?
Skanking, they talk about that a lot in reggae too.
Yeah, no,
it's like a certain a dance
it's like
where
that
high knees a lot of times, man.
Skanking.
Yeah, it came from reggae and ska.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it started out like I think the first ska label was Trojan Records in like Jamaica, and skanking was like a very slow sort of dance. Whoa! And as it
Sorry.
pick it up. Yeah. As it progressed from like reggae into like ska punk and two-tone, you know, the dance evolved to fit the different needs of the culture. So instead of like, you know, slowly skanking by yourself, it came from like, how many people can I hit with my elbows and how fast can I move? I was at a basement hardcore show once, and this one guy started like, there's like a weird difference between two-stepping and skanking, but I can't fully tell. But he just like, this ripped guy went out in the pit and started like violently two-stepping, and I was like, I am terrified. that man, he just asserted his dominance. He was like, this is my pit.
Hell yeah.
It was a great night.
Isn't that interesting too, that like the pits and what they do with human expression, and now we're back to looking at like human bodies and when they get together and what energies are brought from that. But those pits, man, and even if you move out of punk and you move out of that subculture and you go to metal, I've had a lot of clients explain and kind of break down metal for me and the different types of metal, and then the wall of death and the violence.
Yeah, I'm watching that from afar.
But from an outsider, I think you see violence, you see destruction, you see negativity. But from an insider perspective, all I've ever gotten is community, camaraderie, and empathy and compassion, and it's being expressed in a way that other people can't understand. Yeah. But this is a way to cathartically release emotions with other people, and I think that's beautiful, man.
Definitely. I think that the pit was like the best part for me because I was so tense and, still I'm a very tense and anxious person. So when I got in the pit and just got like flung around and flung other people around, it just felt really good. I could like move and I could be crazy and out there without being, stared at. It was the normal,
Yeah.
And a lot of people think of it as violence and view it very negatively. And that there's usually like a pit douche who doesn't help people up. He's like 6 foot tall, 300 pounds.
It's always that guy.
It's just like, always that guy. It's like, I can't see the bands. Guy, please move.
Yeah.
But like,
honey,
everybody's...
I'm heading out tonight. I got to go be pit douche.
Me and the boys.
I'll be back.
We're going to beat his ass. But in like push pits and like less hardcore shows, whenever you fall down, somebody's going to pick you up, or like 5 people are going to pick you up.
Cool. Yeah.
There was this one time at a hardcore show though, I kept falling into this guy, and I need him in the crotch like 5 times because I kept falling down because somebody had me by my vest and was trying to pull me up, and I met him later and I was like, dude, I am so sorry.
Was he
I
cool
felt
though?
really bad. Yeah, no, he was a really cool guy.
He's like, I don't even have penis and testicles. It's actually, I'm a eunuch.
I had it removed.
The second time in one day he said that.
The second time I brought up eunuch. I don't know why.
What about, it's weird. What do you think? What do you think? Punch dancing? You know what I mean? Like punch, like where they're just like, I think it is a form of skanking, and it's 2-step, but they're like, is that what you're talking about? Like swinging their arms like wild.
Yeah, some of it. That's especially in hardcore. Windmilling and crowd killing.
And what?
Crowd killing. I sound like a professor. I'm like, yes.
That's crowd killing.
You are super knowledgeable, man. But I'm more intrigued and interested with your journey. So at what point did you say? Because I've also talked to you a lot, Sonny, about identity and ego formation and persona, and you've done a lot of analytical work on kind of breaking down how you define yourself through these developmental years. That's a fascinating arena to me, because now that we live in a cultural climate right now where there are a lot of identity politics, there's a lot of attachment to identity, and being a part of a particular group and describing yourself socioculturally, politically, gender, sexuality. It seems like almost everyone is either wanting to, it's still all identity. So it's like, I am a pansexual, I am a homosexual, I am a bisexual. There also seems to be like, I am a non-binary, I am trans, and then you move to the political, I am a Democrat, I am Republican, I am liberal. Like, there's a lot, but rarely do you see people going, I don't fucking know, man. I'm just a human.
Bro, I've
been
on this earth for 30 years. I don't know where I am, how I got here. I don't even know my last name.
And I think if you tie it to music, it's interesting because in music, it's like, is this a jazz record? Is this a hip hop record? Is this a rock record? Yeah. I really like the musicians that go, I don't fucking know, man. I just make music, dude.
Does it matter? I think that's the big question.
Does the categorization and the compartmentalization of an identity around and naming it, but there's something going on so
it's limiting. It creates a limit
Yeah.
on however you describe that, and everything that you just said is just like, we tend to then attach ourselves to just that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a Democrat, or I'm just a blues musician, or I'm just a pansexual, and that's all I am. It's just not one facet of my entire being, or one part of my entire life. It's like, it's just like one part of you or one side of you.
But the other piece, and not to jump around, I think this is the most difficult thing that's going on right now, is how do you find a healthy, holistic balance with, I do have identity that is important to me, and it has a culture, and it means something to me, and I attach myself to it, and I want to be seen for that, and I want to honor that, and at the same time, I don't want to be encapsulated with just that view. So it's like, ethnicity is really, really fucking important, man. Where are your roots from? Who are you? Are you Latino? Are you African? Are you Scottish? Are you Irish? Are you Italian? I think so. The danger part in going, I don't know, man, I just fucking make music, that taken to culture would be like missing all of it. Right. You're just a human. I don't care what you are, sexually, racially, anything. There's a danger with the extremes. So how do we find a balancing point of, man, here's how I identify myself. Here's my culture. Here's my heritage. Here's my ethnicity. Here's my relationship with sexuality. Here's my identity. But I'm also a human soul, and I'm more expansive than any of that, and none of that ties me down to any one specific.
Right. I think with punk especially, applying that logic to punk, there's like 30,000 different punk subgenres. You can talk about street punk, crust punk, ska punk.
You say crust?
Crust punk. I will get into that.
I might have
punk.
like a crust punk vibe.
You've definitely got it down.
Didn't even know it, dude.
The thing with
he's crust punk?
Mm-hmm. The crust punk.
Somebody also called me a fucking
wook.
A wook.
A wook?
It's a festival.
EDM.
It's a festival thing.
Yes.
Where it's like that guy probably has like drugs.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't.
That's the look.
Yeah, I think
no, I'm actually a mental health clinician.
That's all you are.
I can prescribe you drugs.
Yeah.
not the drugs you want, but you want to Billify, I got you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
With
Prozac.
I'm going to tell you that Morgan's going to be bringing my Starbucks drink in any moment.
I got to pee. Should I get it?
I mean, if you want to.
So bad.
Really?
Yeah.
I got
to pee again. I've been drinking.
This is how we run it.
You want anything to drink?
I'm all right.
Cool.
You want snacks? Mm-hmm. We run it super organic.
Yeah, my stomach doesn't agree with me right now.
Oh yeah. So when did the fast end?
The 48-hour one.
Yeah.
I think that was 2 days ago.
Okay, and how do you break your fast? Do you do like easily like digestible foods like fruit, or is that?
I generally do when I'm not doing just like straight water fasts.
Yeah,
I'm doing one small meal a day, which is constant. I don't ever eat more than one meal a day generally.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't exercise a lot, so it evens out generally, and it's not the healthiest meal. But I try to keep it under like a certain amount of calories, generally speaking.
And is that going to be like I always look at, because my background was mainly fitness and nutrition. And then I started incorporating like cognitive behavioral therapy and stuff like that. And I got fascinated with human behavior, but a lot of my background is fitness and nutrition. I just always look at it as like, what I'm doing right now, is that sustainable long term? Mm-hmm. And I think I think 1 meal a day is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just depending on, I guess, the caloric intake and how much you're burning too, you know what I mean?
Right. Adapting your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Diet, depending. I mean, I think that fasting is a very good way to, I do it more for mental discipline and
mentioned that.
Resisting desires. But when I have a workout schedule that I eventually want to get into. Cool. I keep saying that. Then I think I'm going to have to start being more mindful of what I eat so that I don't, pass out.
What do you said it's not the healthiest meal. What do you eat?
Oh, don't make me elaborate, man. Just like
if you don't
ordered fast food. Yeah. I've been getting more into cooking. So like,
oh, cool.
Just a lot of like red meat.
Okay. Yeah. Well, dude, I just like house pizza right before we started this.
You told me I came in at the tail end, but with mental discipline. Mm-hmm. Zach coming back from Hawaii initially, I was consuming large quantities of fat, massive amount, and I was like, "Why am I still fat?" And he was like, "You're eating a lot of fat."
Yeah.
But I had this thing in my head psychologically that if I don't eat, if I go 3 or 4 hours, I would start to get really hungry. And for some reason, I'd associated that with not being clear, not being balanced, and I'd go into almost a little bit of anxiety and panic. So if I had like 5, 6, 7 sessions, I would be like, man, I got to eat in front of you. I probably ate in front of you a bunch. Cheese cubes. I'm like, oh, dude, I got to stay grounded. And it was a fear thing. And then you taught me through, we did some intermittent fasting. I played with diet a little bit. And then I started to recognize, man, I'm way more capable of going for stretches of time without food. And just monitoring it better, man. Monitoring what I eat and when I eat instead of feeling like for hunger fucked me up. It made me scared.
You're not even really feeling that. It's not even really hunger you're feeling.
What is it?
It's your body cleaning itself, man. Yeah. Your body uses energy to break down your food, like a massive amount of fucking energy to break down all that food. And if you're consistently eating, dude, it's like that's where all your energy is going. But when you fast, and you know this, man, and you know it, like you feel even more jazzed up and tuned in and clear and just like you're flying high.
When you start out, it's like it's very difficult, especially like that first 24 hours when you're doing like 48 or 20 or 72.
That's crazy, man.
It's just like.
Did you do 72?
I've done, yeah. I mean,
dude, that's hardcore, man.
There are some times when I was just like really depressed and didn't eat for a week, but I wouldn't consider that a fast as much as like I hate myself. You know? It's not disciplined at all.
Yeah.
So, but the first day is like. Your head's going to start hurting. You're going to feel light. But like eventually you'll just reach that point where you're like, I am enlightened.
Yeah, dude.
I have achieved the pinnacle of creation.
There was a beautiful quote that said, fasting is like banqueting with the angels. I thought, and it's a spiritual plane and an attunement to the psycho-spiritual. And Oscar Zornosa, who tattooed my neck and my hands, shout out to him, Stygian Gallery. He's awesome. He would always tattoo me for fucking like 8 hours, man. And I'd be like, Oscar, I've eaten 3 sandwiches on break and you've like smoked a couple cigarettes and not eaten anything. And he'd be like, I can't, man. It keeps me tuned in. I'll eat when I finish my day. But while he was making art and tattooing, he was very particular about I can't eat. And if I eat too much, it grounds me too much. So I think it's that energy vibrational plane.
Yeah.
But you also got to be careful, man. It's like I look at Western psychology and what they've done with eating disorders and this idea of like pathologizing it. I think you just said something really, really fucking important, Sonny, which is you don't count a week fast when you are emotionally and mentally distraught and it's coming from a place of that. You don't really count it because it's not necessarily intentional. So those who are anorexic or bulimic, it really does matter the intention, your relationship with food and the intention behind it and what you're doing. Because I'm sure there's several people who are fasting, but they're really just not eating. But that has a lot to do with image and self-image and guilt and shame and relationship with food. And if I eat this food, I'm fat and I'm not a good person and identity and how I see myself versus I'm going to work on mental discipline and I'm going to come away from eating. Body image issues, all that kind of lines in with it, man. It's hard to pull apart.
I think it's a very fine line between like ED and fasting and just depression, because the point of a fast, especially if you're timing it, like sometimes I'll do like a general fast where I'm not like timing it, but I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat this amount today, or I'm going to eat this amount today, you know. When you're just like, you know, when you're...
Hello, come in. Starbucks delivery.
Thank you.
Starbucks delivery.
Bring me my drink.
Show the Grateful Dead shirt. Stand right there.
That's Morgan.
Doesn't that look... Hold on, stand over this way a little bit. Cool. Isn't that a cool Grateful Dead shirt?
I know it.
No, you're good.
Just got to make sure.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It's delicious.
77, best year. Mark my words.
Rock and roll.
All right.
1977.
Got my drink.
Hell yeah.
I'm it's pumpkin cold brew. No. What?
This
really?
is communism. We share, my comrade, okay?
Really?
We have to
You
share.
could have got a whole thing.
Putin would not be proud.
That's plenty. Hey, ASMR.
There we go. You should have done it near the mic.
That's disgusting. Okay. Sorry.
Speaking of ASMR, there's the second track on my record, the To Shower Monochrome Light.
Yes.
On Spotify now.
Dude,
We're gonna do hella links.
come on, To Shower and Monochrome Light.
Cool as shit.
How'd you even land on that, brother?
No, it was on an acid trip. No. I think, I don't know. A lot of the names just came at different times and they all mean different things. I think To Shower and Monochrome Light is like this, just a state that you're chasing.
Damn.
You know, to just bask in the light and to lay back and finally be done with it, you know.
Wow, man.
A state that you're chasing. Fuck. Fuck out my day, man. Thanks a lot.
But you were going to say a certain track.
The Pour.
Okay.
OUR.
Okay.
Where I sampled like different parts of my day, including like I use French press to make my coffee. So I like put my phone microphone in the French press and was like, let me just pour this in. Cause I really like how that sounds. So I was like, let me make that a motif and then like repeat it. And then towards the end, I make these physical collages as well as my sound collages out of like comic books and newspapers and stuff. And I recorded like ripping up the paper and the gluing and all that. So it all kind of comes through.
Dude, and you made it for yourself, and that's what's beautiful to me. It's a time capsule of what was important to you, and you went to your days and your routines and the sounds that made you feel something. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, man. I've gotten to a point with music where I'm like, I really don't give a fuck what genre it is. Right. I want to see that person bleed truth. And when that happens, it could be rap, it could be country, it could be whatever. I can still feel that there's an authenticity and a truth. And I'm very, very excited to hear your work, all the music you've shown me before.
It's going to be very underwhelming.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
You say that, man, but I think even the idea that you just tried to capture this speaks volumes about who you are as an artist and what you're trying to do. And trying to take that moment in time. It's a time capsule, man. It's
evergreen. It's going to be there forever. It's cool. I like that. I like that idea. You can look back in like 10 years and be like, that's where I was.
And didn't you say, we talked on the phone a little bit, and you said you had also done some stream of consciousness writing.
I think I was going to release, it was going to be called Contemno-Praxis, which is this word I made up, taking contempt or Latin for contempt, and then praxis, which is like the process, and Contemno-Praxis, the hatred of the to despise the process. That's what I was going for.
Come on, Sonny, that's fucking cool.
Damn, dude.
Hold on,
totally.
Contemno-Praxis. Contemno-Praxis. To despise or resent or have contempt for the engagement and the process that you have to go through to create this art.
I heard about a fluxus artist, which is where, you worship the process and you're like, making this art is far more rewarding than the finished product.
And that would be like Buddhist sand mandalas. Like they are, the worship is making the sand mandala. Whether you got a finished product or not, they fucking wipe it away, they destroy it, but the process is honored above all else.
And I think there's virtue in that, but this record was not like that at all. I hated making it. I hated like experiencing the emotions that I did and having to try to, releasing it, knowing it's going to be hated, knowing people are going to scorn my name. It's very weird. It's a very strange process. So,
I'm glad you did it, man.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm
still going to scorn you. No, I'm just joking.
I plan on scorning later.
I probably deserve it. It's fair.
I know you had a pretty intense experience with that piece of like how you were being seen and how your art was being seen. Where do you think you're at in that, man? Just trying to move through and stay true to yourself?
Yeah, I think that I rewatched a play that I watched a long time ago called Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, which talks about nihilist he doesn't like to describe, like, I don't think there's a word for his philosophy, but I would describe it as like nihilism or absurdist nihilism, where he believes the universe is pointless, but man is going to continue to search for meaning in a meaningless universe. And he thought, okay, if that is inherently true, or if that is true, to accept that and to live life anyways, searching for meaning you'll never find, that he thought that was the ultimate rebellion against the universe. So,
Beautiful.
and I'm like, that's a bit dramatic, but I very much, I try to aspire to be that way. I think that life is a contradiction, and that I'm going to often contradict my morals, and I'm going to say things that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm going to behave in ways, but as long as I don't dip too far in the deep end, or as long as I come back and realize, hey, this is part of the process, this is part of the human experience, then, I'm probably going to look back on this podcast and I'm going to look at myself and be like, damn, what a fucking idiot.
The fuck was I saying?
But dude, one of my favorite quotes is, if you're not embarrassed of something you said a year ago, you're not growing enough. Yeah, and you made me think about Camus and Sisyphus and the myth of Sisyphus, and similar to Beckett. That's it, man. You got to push the motherfucking rock up the hill, and it's only going to ever roll back down. Can you find some sense of purpose and happiness? Can Sisyphus be happy in that mundane, stupid, monotonous, fucking pointless task?
What else are you gonna fucking do? That's where I go. What else am I gonna fucking do? Mm-hmm. I've already been down that road. The meaninglessness, the purposelessness, all that stuff. Like, I know how that feels, and I didn't like it. So I'm just gonna try this out, and this feels a little bit better. Yeah, that's where I go with it. It's like, what the fuck else are we gonna do?
Right.
Fuck.
I love that idea, and I love what you're doing. And if I get really honest, Sonny, I'm very, very jealous. Maybe jealous isn't the right word. I have a lot of envy right now, because although I have, partnered with Zach, created this experiential therapeutic youth center, achieved my license as a professional counselor, had a thriving private practice, am closing out on a PhD. I really want to make an album. And I haven't taken any time to really do what you've done, to go inward. And I don't want to make music with anybody else. I want it to be alone by myself, and I want to take time to explore. And I haven't had that. And if I were to die right now, one of my biggest regrets would be that I never put enough time and energy into that creative expression. So for you to be working on your music and doing this, I think it's awesome. I also think if you keep talking about it, you're going to make me freak out, and I'm going to leave and have to go do that. And
just lock yourself in a cabin somewhere. And
Gypsy Moonchild.
I have one song, and it's
Kentucky Moonchild.
I think it's happening.
Yeah.
Here, as long as I just think it's phenomenal what you're doing, man.
I think one of the musicians I look up to a lot, Phil Elverum from the Microphones and his other project, Mount Erie, he just released this like 44-minute song called The Microphones in 2020, and he's very meta and references himself a lot. And he said this is like his first time coming back to the Microphones name, and he was like, I think that the name doesn't mean anything. I think that you should, he said something to the effect of burning your journals and then jumping through the ashes and creating something new. And I love that sort of idea.
That's awesome. And so you've done this album to bathe in monochrome light.
To shower, yeah.
Damn it. To shower in monochrome light. And you have a new project you're working on right now. You want to talk about that at all? Or
sure.
Okay.
There's a I think ahead a lot, and I have like 5 different album ideas in my head that I want to pursue, but I need to slow down and make sure they don't all sound the same, make sure that I'm changing things up. Though I think that the next one, it was going to be called The 9 Choirs and focus on the 9 choirs of angels, but I think the next one's going to be called...
I don't know what that is. Can you tell me?
I don't want to say Christian myth, but in the Book of Enoch, which is removed from the Bible, they talk about the angels and the hierarchy of angels and the different types of angels, and they go into Azazel and Belial and their 200 angels and how they came down to earth and scorned God. They basically just came down and were like, you know what? We're going to get mad bitches. And in the beginning of the Bible, they talk about the Sephilim, which are the giants, and they briefly talk about it, and then they never come back to it. And it's like, the giants? Can we talk about that?
Can we please revisit that?
Enoch goes into more detail about that, and the giants were the sons and daughters of the angels and human women. But there's a whole hierarchy of angels, the 9 choirs, and I don't remember all of it. I think it's angels, archangels, truths, principalities. I don't remember all the rest. There's the Sephilim, the Seraphim, and the Cherubim. Not necessarily in that order, but yeah.
Awesome.
The virtues, that's another one, and the thrones. Yeah.
So would you say in your musical process that sometimes, because it for me, Sonny, it sounds like it's all alignment and it's a woven tapestry. So it's almost like you have your psychological and emotional components of self and the work you're doing on yourself. You have study and exploration of art and literature, listening to music that inspires you and reading, and then you have your own creative process of what you're doing. But it sounds like they all blend, man. It's almost like your mental health and where you're at in that journey as a human being and what you're studying and looking into and reading forms together at certain times to then help you birth these creative projects.
I feel like that's my personal Sisyphean myth. Okay. Trying to do that, trying to sonically define an emotion and to represent it to someone and be like, hey, if you listen to this 20-minute one-note track, you will understand the depths of my being. But it always falls short of that. And, that's goes back to hell is other people. People are never going to fully understand you or fully empathize with you. Some people are going to look at an experimental 3-hour record and be like, what the fuck is that? Why would I listen to that?
That's where you get to a philosophical root, which is maybe it's not even possible. But I'm still going to keep fucking trying. I'm still going to utilize sonic creation as a way to describe my phenomenological lived experience as an idiosyncratic human being to the best of my ability. Right. And maybe it gets somewhat closer or it brushes against or it gives some awareness to, but it will never fully ever be able to encapsulate my experience here as a human being on this earth. But I tried.
Yeah. I think I work best when I'm working with a concept or with applying my experiences to like a story or a theme. Monochrome Light didn't really do that, so I feel like it fell short of my first record, and I'm not saying my first record is amazing or anything. But
what was the title of your first record?
Oh Sweet Mother, What Distress We Have Caused, which is
like that.
It's like a tribute to the earth. It's
cool,
but it's more like rhythmic, and there's a bunch of African drum samples. It's very.
Is that on Spotify?
Yeah,
rock and roll
under Ditchcrawler, which is my artist name.
Cool, Ditchcrawler.
And the next record I want to work on is called Ditch or The Ditch or something to that effect.
I think I showed your music to Zach at one point, and we were talking, and damn it, there was one that was like, I'm going to butcher it, dude, and I'm going to make fun of it and poke fun because you and I have that relationship, but it was something like, I'm going to wear your fucking skin as a bath float.
Oh, there's I took it off of...
That's what Zach, I remember when I showed him the thing, he was like, whoa.
Whoa. I took that off of Spotify.
What was it?
You used my corpse as a raft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
you remember? You use that's fucking awesome.
I would,
though, man.
I would. Under certain circumstances.
Make a pretty damn good raft. Yeah. It's one of my strengths in life.
And Sonny, dude, we could talk forever. I want to take 5 minutes. Maybe we wrap and bring some closure, and we'd like to have you on again at some point.
For sure.
What do you feel like is best to bring closure to our conversation today? Because I think you've shared. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I'm very thankful to have you on here.
I think we didn't get to touch too much on the accusations, and I feel like we don't have a whole lot of time to do that. though I would like to do that if I do come on the podcast
Yeah.
again. I don't know. I think the next record is going to be better. That's my hope. And I think that my process is continuously, oh no, this time I'm going to get it. This time I'm going to get it. Then I put it out and I look back and I'm like, oh, that was shit. That was horrible. But the next time, And I also think that when I use the name Ditchcrawler, I want people to recognize that Ditchcrawler isn't a definitive name. It's not me. I am the Ditchcrawler. I am the pinnacle of that idea. I think that a Ditchcrawler is a resident of a place that I imagine called the ditch, which is like the depths of human morality. That's where you're at your lowest. That's where you're constantly crawling and you're experiencing immense pain, but you're trying to crawl towards something. And I think that that's something I'd like people to keep in mind.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man.
I'm very small in this very terrifyingly huge universe. And, 100 years from now, no one's going to care about my struggles. And I find comfort in that.
But your art may live on as a grain of sand.
We'll see. Maybe after I die.
Play.
Each grain of sand?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, man, mental health wise. Anything you want to say to people out there who might be feeling deeply disconnected, isolated, struggling with agoraphobia, struggling with whether or not to get therapeutic support, and I know you're going to say it in a brilliant way where you say, hey, this is my experience, I can't tell you what to do, but anything, maybe almost like if you were speaking to yourself out there.
I think, especially if you're being accused of some sort of misconduct, or if you're in a space where you know your own personal truth and people are just shitting all over that, it's good to remember that truth may be subjective, but facts are not. And you can take your defined experience, how you remember things, what you went through, the truth of what happened between you and other people, and no one can take you from that, no matter how many people shit on your name, step on your name. I'm getting amped up. I'm like, let's fucking go,
dude. Because I think there's a climate that exists right now that is unique to this time period we're in as human beings, where we see it's a lot of accusations, accusations of you did this misconduct, you said this thing, you behaved in this way, and we are going to all out shut you down as a human being, and you will never be able to ever do anything again. And there's not a lot of forgiveness right now. If there was ever, not to say that people shouldn't be fucking held accountable if something occurred, but with a false accusation, enough people get on board, man, and it's a mob mentality. If you got 100,000 people saying, and it's a game of telephone, and people are saying nope,
that's what it becomes. I looked at my Bandcamp visit sources, and like when people thought I was dead at one point, and then I redid a track and put it on Bandcamp, and I got so many visits, and I just looked back at it and I was like, that's terrifying. And some of them were from Twitter, of all places, which scared me even more. But I think that what people should remember is remember your own personal truth, but never think of these other people, never hold them in contempt, never hold them with spite. Do not resort to sexism or to any of the many traps that you can fall into. Just stay strong in your own personal power.
Beautiful.
So,
that's beautiful.
Beautiful. Walk through the world how you need to, and continue moving with that, man. Yeah. Absolutely. Beautiful.
Awesome. Dude, I like one thing, and we can close it, but like, I think like when you said sonically define an emotion, that's fucking cool.
Thank you.
It really stuck with me. I was like, dude, I've never heard it put that way. It's very cool. It's music. Sonically defining an emotion. Fuck.
Anyways. That's it. That is. It's beautiful. Cool. Sonny, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming out.
Fun, man.
Thank you for being here. I do want to schedule another time.
Sorry,
Eternal strength. You're the bomb.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.